Thanks. Good morning, everybody. They stole about 5 minutes of my time, but this is a quick story. And I'll just say at the start, I've shown this photo plenty of times, and for those who've seen it before, I apologise. Can get a bit boring drilling really good drill holes. We put out some stellar numbers this morning. The best drill hole we've ever drilled at Dalgaranga and the number 4 drill hole that we've ever drilled at Dalgaranga. They are infill drill holes, which some would say demeans from the, I suppose, the importance of them. But the way I look at it is if you can drill infill holes that are number 1 and number 4 all time, you've got an amazing ore body on your hands. So I'll walk through this. There's lots of words, lots of numbers. Please come and see me in the booth afterwards. I've made some words pink just because I want them to stand out. And in reference to Kerry's usually favourite colour, she hasn't worn pink this time. I think she was wearing pink on the first day. All right, the story of Spartan. If you've heard it again, apologise. Look, came out of Gascoyne Resources. I came into the company in 2021 by virtue of being acquired. I was a little company called Firefly Resources, not to be confused with Firefly Metals, which is in Newfoundland doing copper. That's now a subsidiary of Gascoyne, which is now called Spartan. That is my company. I have an amazing team, some of who were in place when I first took over the company. It was a struggling gold miner. It had been into administration once before. My former chairman is sitting in the back corner there, so just to embarrass him enough. The guy looks a bit like George Clooney, except probably better looking. Wanted to point out here a few things. A few shares on issue, $1.5 billion market cap, almost. For an explorer, that's pretty incredible. What we did at the end of 2022 was turn that plant off, turn the mine off, because we'd made a discovery within about a month of me starting there, and all I did was ask the geos that were already there, who'd been bashed around, gone through administration, what do you want to do? What do you want to drill? I'll go get the money. I come with a pedigree from Northern Star, and for what that was worth, I went and got some cash, and we tidied up the balance sheet. We made a discovery on the first idea that these geos came back with. That's now put us in a position where we have a pretty high market cap and $93 million in the bank to continue doing what we love doing, which is in that photo there, drilling. We're located pretty much smack bang in the middle of WA, about an hour's flight from Perth, 5 hours drive. It's a great part of the world to be operating in, not too hot like the Pilbara, and you get wildflowers during the spring, so pretty beautiful place to work. We've managed to put 2.5 million ounces at 4.8 grams a tonne in front of the infrastructure that I walked into in that sort of late stage in 21, shut that plant down. We weren't making money in the open pit at the time, and we made this discovery, and we've just set about building this story from there. That 2.5 million ounces at 4.8 is within about a kilometre of that plant, and as Grady referred to, the start of the open pit is 600 metres from that plant. Almost 2 million ounces of that is almost at 8 grams a tonne. I won't go through this in too much detail, but when you think about the gold price at the moment, 3,700 Aussie, and we're discovering ounces at a cost of $16.50 Aussie, we're doing, I think, pretty well from a return on investment perspective. That's our site. This is how simple this is. The loss-making open pit that was being operated at the time is the blue oval on the left-hand side. Pepper, which we've just discovered in April, actually closer to the pit than even Never Never was, is in the yellow ellipse there, and Never Never, which is now standing at just short of 1.5 million ounces, is sitting 600 metres from that plant. That's the strike. It almost looks too obvious. If you go and follow up what was already being mined and you drill along strike, sometimes you find an ore body. In this case, we found an incredible series of ore bodies, and there's a regional scale to this, which is why I leave a little open arrow on the right-hand side there. I think this system gets much bigger. That plant's less than 5 years old. You can see it's pretty clean, pretty tidy. Our growth path has been very rapid. We didn't have a lot of friends when I shut that plant down. We were 26 cents when we went into a trading halt. For 4 months, people wondered if we were going to go into administration again. We didn't, courtesy of the lovely lady sitting at the table here, Tejal, my CFO. She helped me navigate through that whole period of uncertainty. Shareholders were very vocal about what we were doing because they were scared we were going to go into administration a second time. We managed to find a friend in Tembo Capital. They helped us to recap the company. We did a $50 million recap at 10 cents. Everyone had to take a bit of a haircut, including the guys that were contracting for us when we shut the plant down. But they took equity, and lucky for them, they did. We're now sitting at $1.34, $1.35 share price. So from 10 cents in February last year when we recapped to now, that's a pretty incredible rise. And it's tribute to the drilling, I suppose, the aggressive strategies that we've employed. 300,000 ounces, 6 months later, 700, 6 months later, almost 1 million ounces. And then just recently, we managed to surprise the market with about 1.5 million ounces at Never Never, but we also added 430,000 ounces at Pepper, which is sitting right next door. Our exploration target that we set early last year, we smashed. Sorry, early this year. 90,000 metres of drilling. We're going to keep drilling. So everyone asks me, what's the plan from here? Keep drilling. But I've also brought in a COO to help us get that plant back into operation, work out how much it's going to cost to optimise that plant to crush 100% underground feed, because this isn't an open pit mining operation. This will be a large-scale, long-life underground mine. Plenty of rigs on site right now. This is a long section view. Pretty incredible. We've drilled Never Never on the left-hand side to over 1,000 metres below surface now. 10.5 metres at 8 grams a tonne in that last hole. Could have kept going, but it's expensive to keep drilling at that depth. I just wanted people to understand that this system is open. It's open at depth. It cuts off to the north, but what happened when we looked at Never Never and worked out what had happened there, what the genetics were, we looked back into the open pit, which was loss-making because it was low grade, and we realised there were pockets of high grade. Those pockets of high grade match up with the same shear zone association that Never Never has proven to be part of, and there's multiple shears that cut across the stratigraphy here. I'm happy to walk through this at the booth. Look, I could describe it as a sandwich, given my tubby nature. I always use analogues related to food. The hanging wall on the footwall, which is basically the rock that's not mineralised on either side of the ore body, it envelops or sits adjacent to the sandwich filling, which is where you want to be. That's where the high grade is. In our case, that sandwich filling is a permeable rock type. It's called volcaniclastics, but basically it's ash, tuff, that sort of stuff that comes out of volcanoes. It's very permeable. If you cross-cut a shear that's carrying gold fluid through it, it will run along that plane. It will fill that sandwich, and in our case, that sandwich filling is up to 30 to 50 metres wide. So that's a pretty incredible volume from ore body, and to have the grades that we're seeing consistently in our drill holes, this is no narrow vein, low-grade system. This is not going to be a challenging mine. This is going to be an incredible mine. Got some pretty excited engineers. Today we put out a couple of drill hits, as I mentioned. They are infill, but they are into Pepper, which is rapidly becoming what looks like overall higher grade than Never Never, and Never Never was pretty incredible. I've also used the resource classification colouring there, the grey and the yellow, just to illustrate what we're trying to do at Pepper. It is an inferred resource at this stage. We had 16 holes into it. What we're doing right now is very rapidly drilling that to indicated status, because I want those ounces available for our maiden reserve calculation. Because we've got almost 2 million ounces sitting there. If I can convert those into reserve, this becomes very quickly and obviously a long life underground mine. You see some of that gold there? You know, in drilling, you see gold quite a lot. You see little specks. You get the guys with their little hand lenses. That thing was just standing out like there was no tomorrow. We've hit vis gold in every single hole into Pepper so far. Not all looking like that, but we're pretty proud of big chunks when we see it like that. That's the top 20. I'm very rapidly trying to push the less than 300 gram metre intercepts off this table. Pepper is helping me do that. The 2 pink ones are the ones we put out today. The 3 yellow ones are actually previous Pepper holes. So Pepper, even in the 450 drill holes we put into Never Never, and we wrote a top 20, in the first 20 holes into Pepper, they're already pushing some of those Never Never holes out. That's, to put it in context, Pepper is pretty special. That's ounces per vertical metre. For any engineers in the room and some geos that have worked in mines before, ounces per vertical metre is pretty important. You can only develop 75 to 100 metres vertical a year, but if you can put, you know, almost 4,000 ounces per vertical metre into that mine, that is some pretty incredible production for that 75 to 100 metres of vertical advance you can get. Some would argue, Bill Beeman would say that he could do 150 metres vertical. Good on him. I'm using 75 to 100. What that means is we'll be able to produce, and you can do the sums yourself, I won't say the numbers. I have to put a pre-feasibility study around this to work out exactly what this is going to produce in terms of ounces, and I have to work out what that cost is going to be. Just to put it in context, it's a very compact site. I'll do a little bit of crayon drawing on here. So right in the centre of all of this activity is our processing plant in blue. Our granted mining lease, and we just had a very topical discussion about this, sits around these mines. This is the main Gilbey's complex, which was being mined. This is the Never Never discovery, and Pepper is sitting right in the middle. So the distance to plant's pretty obvious there, but we are on fully granted mining leases with all the infrastructure. You can see the airstrip in the top right-hand corner, 200-man camp, full power station, everything ready to go. We have to optimise that plant to take that feed, but you can imagine the capital cost to get this set up is going to be less than someone starting from scratch. And the time frame, given permitting takes longer and longer these days, given we've already got those granted leases, very quick. Which probably helps to explain our share price. I'll just zoom into what we're doing right now. I love drilling holes. I love being underground. So we've decided to kick off, put in an exploration drill drive, which for all intents and purposes will be the access to the underground mine to access Never Never and Pepper. Those blue lines are the drill holes that we've designed to drill. We've got 65,000 metres to drill. We have the money to do that drill drive and do that drilling. Hopefully that makes people in the room happy. So if I just use this diagram here just to illustrate a few things, and I apologise if I'm shaky, but the shear zone that creates Never Never sits right there. The shear zone that we looked at, didn't know what was on the other side of it, but using the same theory that Never Never sits to the south of a shear zone that cross-cuts this sandwich filling, which is running from left to right, we predicted where Pepper was. It took us a couple of holes to get in the slot, but we're right there now. There's a brittle structure and another shear zone that cuts off the pit, which is why they stopped mining to the north end there and why they lost that mineralisation. And there were some theories about why the mineralisation to the north of that pit, which was obvious, the follow-up drill hole we drilled, 8 metres at 3.9 grams a tonne from 24 metres down. Cost us about $700 to follow up that hole, and now we're sitting on 2.5 million ounces at 4.8. So I suppose I'd like to throw it out there to all the guys that come to these conferences and girls that run mining companies or resources companies, have a crack, don't think it's done. Sure, your geos know a lot of stuff. They will argue, but sometimes you just got to drill a hole. I commonly refer to it as herding cats. When you run a geology department, it is literally like herding cats. Number of shear zones running through here. And you can see some periodicity to this. We almost were able to predict exactly where Pepper was because of that periodicity. That's the resources applicable to these different deposits. Pepper's there. This is Never Never from surface. They're both open at depth. And trust me, we're going to infill Pepper, but we are going to drill it to depth as well. I want to take it down to 1,000 metres as well and show people that this is going to be an incredible story. But there's more. So the sandwich filling that I've referred to, if I just take a bit of an aerial view here, your sandwich filling actually comes down, well, it's a stratigraphic sequence that comes this way, but then it folds around and it goes this direction. If you take those shear zones that create these high-grade systems and you run them through the pit, apologies for my scribble, but it's actually fairly easy to predict where these high-grade systems are going to be because there's actually high-grade systems there already. Sly Fox, which was a deposit, was the highest grade unmined deposit. There was a pit on top of it, but no one had mined underneath it. It was the highest grade prospect on the whole lease when I turned up. Just so happens to line up with one of these shear orientations. So we already know that it's repeatable. We can predict where these things are, and the best way to do that is then use remote sensing or geophysics. I apologise if I go over time, but this is a great story. I've got the stage. So geophysics, going back to that mining lease, the green outline there, much better drawn than I did with my crayon. The blue area we did a gravity survey over. We've done CSAMT. We've bombed it with a bunch of geophysics. We can see these structures regionally. So if I just draw them on here, hopefully you can see them. I could pretty much destroy anything and you guys would believe me, right? Scribble everywhere. But these lines line up with existing deposits. That's what's really crazy about this. It's almost obvious. And then when you zoom out even further, and I don't have an image for it, I'm sure Remelius would be annoyed, all of the structures that we're seeing, the orientations that are associated with high-grade shoots, regardless of lithology, but in this case they're associated with volcanoclastics, those structures are present in Mount Magnet. And I know everyone uses neurology, but that's a 6 million ounce camp with the same type of structures, with high-grade deposits, all at the same orientation. Can't be a coincidence. So we're bombing that area at the moment with an RC rig, following up some air core work and some geophysics we've done. So we aren't stopping with just this amazing high-grade underground mine we've found. We want to make this bigger. Oh, Kerry's approaching. I've got pink.
You got what?
I've got pink. 90,000 metres of drilling. That's what we're going to do in the next 12 months. We'll find lots more gold, heaps of news flow, resource updates every 6 months. I want to put out a reserve. It's going to probably be the first part of next year. And that's it.